On the last day of Pride Month, that is LGBTQ Pride Month, Abominable Pride Month, the church made a social media post endorsing effeminate male behavior and LGBTQ activism, and they did so by featuring a man named Pono Skousen. In their post, he talks about how he was a ballet dancer, about how he learned to sew from the women in Relief Society, and how he's now a fashion designer for women's clothing. There's a specific part of the post where he says the following, and I quote, "Faith has always been part of my life, and it shows up in my work in quiet ways. I love exploring identity, spirituality, and purpose through clothing. Clothes can tell stories. They can carry light." Close quote. Now, just what kind of stories do his clothes tell? When I look at them on his Instagram account, I don't see light. I see darkness. I see weirdness and creepiness. I see cross-dressing or borderline cross-dressing. I see the appearance of evil, something the scriptures tell us to avoid. And it only gets worse when I visit the other accounts that are linked to his main page. One of them is called Church of Martin, and this account makes it glaringly obvious that Pono Skousen is an LGBTQ activist. It has many pictures of homosexual couples, including a pair of kissing Boy Scouts. And of the few hundred followers this Instagram page has, Charlie Bird just happens to be one of them. And for those of you who don't know about Charlie Bird, he's a homosexual influencer that the fallen prophets are using to normalize wokeness among our people. You see, Charlie Bird isn't just a homosexual influencer, he's a member of the church, and he remains a member of the church despite his LGBTQ advocacy, and despite his homosexual activities, which would include a homosexual marriage. Yes, Charlie Bird is married to a man, and he and his husband recently went viral for announcing their plan to obtain a baby through the use of IVF, in vitro fertilization. And yet, despite all of this, he hasn't been excommunicated from the church. And not only has he not been excommunicated, it seems that he even has a calling in the ward that he goes to.
Kind of where I became aware of Charlie Bird and his kind of deal that he's got going on is actually when John Dehlin, I don't know if
friend of the show.
Yeah, friend of the show. People affiliated with his platform went to Charlie Bird's ward to basically go spy on him to see if he was taking the sacrament and if they had callings in their ward and stuff, and he found, and these people that went to spy on him, I don't agree, they shouldn't have done that, that's kind of weird, but they found out that yes, they were taking the sacrament, they have active callings and things like that, and so then it sparked a lot of debate online. It's like, what's going on here?
Now, some of you might try to fool yourself into thinking that Charlie Bird hasn't been excommunicated simply because the brethren aren't aware of him. But let me assure you, they're not only aware of him, they're protecting him. They're using him to normalize LGBTQism among our people. And I'll do a more in-depth report on that later. The main thing I want to talk about right now is this post from the church and the ridiculous lengths people have gone to cope about it. There seems to be no end to the extent people will go to run and hide from the truth about what is really happening here. For starters, we've got Greg Mattson, the host of Quick Show, who just can't figure out why the church keeps making woke posts. He's just not able to put two and two together.
And so it's odd for a church account to be advocating for something that is the opposite of what is taught in the family proclamation. And doing it at its universities as well. And this seems to be something that's kind of picking up steam. Somebody in that department, or several people in that department, seem to be wanting to be inclusive of all types of individuals. I get that, right? You want to be inclusive and invite everyone to the gospel, regardless of their position in life, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of gender, regardless of any of these things. You want to invite them all, but to advocate for certain things is a problem. And in a world where the philosophies of men and the destruction of gender, the destruction of marriage, the destruction of family, the destruction of femininity, the destruction of masculinity is happening all around us, to join in on those types of things is very concerning to me. I don't really get why they would do this. Why are we doing this? And how many more times are we going to see this account come out with things that are questionable? I had some comments I had put on in response to the post. As I retweeted it, I said something to the effect of, maybe this was on Facebook, who's in charge of this account? How is this happening? And why is there a trend that we seem to be following of turning things upside down when there's such a void of a strong message to men, especially in the church and in our society more broadly? Why are we doing this? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a real mystery, Greg. I mean, it couldn't possibly have something to do with the brethren themselves. It's not like they're the ones selecting the personnel who run our social media, or our universities, or our publishing, or our other major industries, right? I just have no idea why these things keep happening over and over again. Now, to his credit, at least Greg is talking about what the church is doing and asking who's responsible for it. There are others, however, who aren't even interested in discussing who's responsible. There are those like Samuel here who will run from that topic whenever it's brought up, usually by diverting attention away from the topic of leadership or by deflecting blame onto someone other than the leadership.
Is it social media's job to influence my kids, or is it my job as a parent to influence my kids? Right? Like, if I'm worried as a parent that my kids are going to go on
look
the
at
internet,
that, putting it back on the parents.
Well, I mean, if I'm nervous as a parent that my kids are going to go on the internet and take on the personalities that they find there, then I've already failed a couple steps back.
You see what he did? Instead of attacking corrupt leadership, he deflects blame back onto the members. He goes, is it really social media's job to be influencing our children? Like, if you're even worried about that, you've failed already. That's not the discussion that needs to be had right now. While he's right to say that you should raise your kids to be free thinkers and not be completely influenced by social media, the discussion that we need to have is, why are the leaders poisoning our own institutions? Why are our own institutions going astray? And when pressed further on the issue, he again weasels away from discussing the leadership by changing the topic.
He says, I think the problem started when they hired the current communications director. He's extremely progressive.
So they're bringing it back to Aaron Sherinian. Is that right?
But yeah, and here's the thing, like all cards on the table, I'm pretty conservative in my views. But like this instant want or desire to instantly shift it to like a viewpoint or a perspective, I think is still missing the mark. Like I said earlier, I don't think that the church should be doing this at all. Like, there's I don't see the benefit of doing this. So somebody show me, please. Somebody mention in the comments, what is the benefit of the church even doing these member spotlights at all?
Right.
You see what I mean? Instead of addressing Aaron Sherinian and the other woke personnel chosen by our corrupt prophet and apostles, he weasels out by saying, looking at the leadership is looking beyond the mark. The real problem is that the church is posting on social media in the first place. Seriously, guys, what's the purpose of these membership highlights anyway? Well, Samuel, the purpose of these highlights, like all other activities in the church, is to promote righteous behavior, which in turn can lead us all to a higher, happier way of life. The highlights in particular are a chance to show everyone what Latter-day Saints look like, to show everyone who we are, what we do, how we live, and that we're not the lame, backwards, superstitious freaks that the world so often portrays Christians to be. And when done right, these posts can be an extremely effective missionary tool, as well as a strong source of encouragement and solidarity for those of us already in the church. But instead, our program is being used to gradually normalize apostate ideas and wicked behavior. And when you trace the cause of the problem back to its source, you will find that it's the brethren who are responsible for what the church is promoting. But instead of addressing this problem, guys like Samuel will cuck out by saying something like, "The issue is not that the church is promoting wokeness on social media or at its universities. The problem is that the church has social media or universities at all." And these guys will pretend that if we just get rid of the church's social media and get rid of BYU, KSL, Deseret Book, and so on, then the woke infection of the church will simply go away. Well, guess what, Samuel? Even if you got rid of all those things, the problem wouldn't go away, because you'd still have the same woke personnel and the same woke apostles running everything. You'd still have the feminist temple endowment, the apostate lies in Come Follow Me, the woke Book of Mormon videos, and so on. So, the only way to end wokeness in the church is to weed out those who are cultivating it, including the leadership. It has to be done if we want our descendants to grow up in a righteous culture. But it won't be possible as long as our people have the following idiotic mindset being preached by the Latter-day Saints YouTube channel.
We're not in charge of excommunication. Unless you are someone's bishop or stake president, you have no say, and you are actually commanded by Jesus in 3rd Nephi to not worry about excommunication. It's not your job. Your job is to invite people. Visitors welcome, right?
This satanic nonsense has got to be debunked every time it's encountered. Jesus never commanded anyone not to worry about the excommunication of apostates, nor did he say that all we have to do is be nice and welcoming. Did he say we should be welcoming to all? Yes, but that doesn't automatically mean you can't or shouldn't watch over the church and make sure it's not going astray. In fact, we were told to watch out for false prophets who come to us as sheep, but are inward ravening wolves. We were also told that we'd be able to tell who was a false prophet and who was a true prophet by the fruits of their work, not simply because they held an office. Furthermore, we were told more than once in section 20 of the Doctrine and Covenants alone to watch over the church so that iniquity doesn't prevail in it. So yes, you do have a duty to ensure that unworthy people like Pono Skousen and Charlie Bird are not listed on the sacred membership record of the church. And I want to make something clear. You can do this without being unwelcoming. People who are excommunicated from the church are still welcome to attend church. They're just simply not listed on our sacred membership record, okay? So there's no problem calling for the excommunication of blatant apostates like Charlie Bird. And I encourage all of you out there, make appointments with your bishops and stake presidents. Tell them about Charlie Bird and work with them to get Charlie Bird and his husband removed from the records of the church. And if it doesn't work, then find out who's protecting them from excommunication. You have a duty to do this, so get after it. Now, going on, the worst case of coping I've seen so far involves Cardin Ellis from Ward Radio and Jacob Hansen from Thoughtful Faith. They were doing a live stream together talking about this post and the spread of wokeness in the church, and some of the people in the comments would occasionally bring up Aaron Sherinian, and whenever this happened, these two guys would not only dismiss the obvious problem with Sherinian, but they defended and even praised him.
Freedom Robust says Aaron Sherinian is the global comms director, a very pro-LGBT activist. He needs to be held accountable for all these mistakes. Remember that personnel is policy. Remove Aaron and this will stop. Nah, I don't think that's a good take.
I don't think this is. I reject that there's some cabal of people who are like trying to do something nefarious. Just so everyone knows, I don't believe that that's the case in the church. I think what we have are people who, I think we have a strategy that is poor, that's just sort of like, hey, let's highlight everyone that doesn't fit the mold. And then and let's showcase our diversity, and then these kind of things happen as sort of a byproduct of that. Now, there may be bad face actors in there, but I don't think it's some coordinated effort. I don't. And I think that Aaron, for any of Aaron's sort of past things, I have not seen anything from Aaron in the church that I think has, while I may disagree with PR strategy, I don't think that there's some kind of nefarious intent. I haven't seen anything to justify that.
Also, dude, like, I've got some insights into PR over the past couple of years, and dude, full disclosure, I'm like one of Aaron Shrinian's biggest fans. I think that guy's like the freaking hardest working dude in the church office building and runs circles around every other bureaucrat in that building. And if all of the church employees had the work ethic alone of Aaron Shrinian, we would not be in this problem. And the dude lives his life putting out fires, not making them. Of course, leadership's always going to get blamed for any faux pas of anything in the middle. All right. But like, the dude missed a layup at a fair conference and all of a sudden was shoved into the spotlight that he never asked for a job he's overqualified for, that he makes less in. Let me tell you, Aaron Shrinian is a freaking consecrated individual, and the proof is his freaking paycheck. The dude took a pay cut serving the church, not a pay increase, all right? Remove Aaron and this will stop. That's funny. No, I actually think get 5 of them. The dude was a bishop. He served in mission presidencies overseas. Like, the guy is all in on the gospel, and I can personally attest to that, you know? But, like, he's also repping us on the world stage with people that don't agree with every take of Mormon doctrine. And that's a tough needle to thread, so we need to help the guy out and give the dude grace, not, like, crap. You know what I'm saying?
Come on, guys. What are you worried about? There's obviously no reason to be suspicious of a guy like Aaron Shrinian. If anything, we need more people like him running the church. Give us 5 of them. What? What are you so paranoid about? He's really a nice guy. He has a strong work ethic too. Come on, bro. This has got to be the most delusional, desperate, pathetic coping I've ever seen. Never mind what the brethren are doing for a second. These two are defending and praising Aaron Shrinian himself, an obvious traitor to the church. I might have suspected this from Cardin Ellis. After all, he's always been the king of cringe among the Mormon influencers. But I expected better of Jacob Hansen. And I say that because of the compilation you're about to see. You're about to see 10 minutes of Jacob Hansen pointing out all the different ways the church has been promoting wokeness. You're going to see him discussing things that basically prove there's an internal, coordinated effort to make the church woke. And yet, despite seeing the mountain of evidence with his own eyes, he will deny that any coordinated effort exists.
I don't think this is, I reject that there's some cabal of people who are like trying to do something nefarious. Just so everyone knows, I don't believe that that's the case in the church.
You sure about that?
Now, there may be bad face actors in there, but I don't think it's some coordinated effort. I don't.
You sure about that?
It confuses me why the church would recently have bishops like Bishop Shrinian, who has been engaged in queer advocacy for years, hired as the new communications director for the church. This is a man who, while serving as bishop, was posting his joy at the redefinition of marriage.
God-sanctioned marriage between a man and a woman has been the basis of civilization for thousands of years. There is no justification to redefine what marriage is. Such is not our right, and those who try will find themselves answerable to God.
Is this no longer what we believe? It is, at the very least, confusing to have a bishop in our church posting "love is love," while the church's official teachings are that homosexual relationships are seriously sinful. Yet, when the Deseret book author Charlie Bird announces his engagement to his boyfriend on social media, I see other LDS authors and BYU officials writing entire blogs where they celebrate this union that the church teaches is deeply sinful. Now, regardless of your opinions on these matters, is this not confusing? Even Young Women's General President Emily Bell Freeman still has Charlie posted on her social media page as an example of someone that we can all learn from. Another confusing event had to do with Liv Haney. Liv is a Young Women's president who also is a queer activist. She has explicitly stated online that she has stopped believing in the family proclamation and participates in all sorts of queer activism in and around the church's BYU school. So it was really confusing to me when Sharon Eubank and the Relief Society General Presidency chose Liv as the person to join them on stage at BYU.
So I'm very pleased to introduce my friend, Jessica Livier Haynes, but she goes by Liv. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the BYU conference.
Well, my name is Livier, but most people call me Liv, and I really like it. I'm a Young Women's president. I'm a daughter, a sister, a returned missionary. I am queer. If you don't know how to refer to someone, what term to use or pronoun, listen to them. Listen how I speak about myself, and show me and show everyone that you want to be in this journey. For a long time, I felt that recognizing who I am made me broken, and I was ashamed of saying it out loud. I had always had those feelings, but it took me about 20 years to look at myself in the mirror and say it out loud. But now I know that I'm not broken. I am perfect the way I am.
Huh? What does that even mean? Is the position of the church that we are perfect the way we are? Is it our belief that experiencing same-sex attraction or dealing with gender dysphoria is not an issue to be concerned with? I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but does this kind of rhetoric create more clarity? Or does it cause deeper confusion and division? And why was it the Relief Society's choice to have an activist who does not believe in the family proclamation to speak on these issues? This is why things like pride displays in local chapels cause so much confusion. It also confuses members when the church's official university, BYU, is handing out gay pride and pronoun gear to its students. It's confusing for students at the church's university to sit in on a lecture where professors are positing the radical idea that maybe Joseph and Jesus were gay.
And they notice something really powerful about the figure, the literary figure that's being developed, and that is he shows signs of being gay. What they're doing is gendering the Savior.
I want to start with some fairly recent events that took place in Arizona, where a man who dresses like a woman was placed on the official records of the church as a woman.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Osler. My guest on today's podcast is a new convert to the church. Will you tell us, Lauren, and will you tell us your last name? I want to make sure I say it right.
Again.
And Lauren is a transgender Latter-day Saint who joined the church following a legal transition, following medical transition, is obviously a woman. Mm-hmm. If someone's wondering, this was a rogue event by some whatever vocabulary we're going to use that's going to end badly. This is the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with keys to authorize your baptism. And that is significant.
I agree. If men are now able to be put on the records of the church as women and treated as a woman, that is extremely significant. It is also confusing when we are hearing professors at the church's universities pray to Heavenly Mother along with Heavenly Father.
Our opening prayer today will be offered by Dr. Rachel Gianni Abbott.
Our Heavenly Parents, thank you for this new day to live life and learn lessons. And our Heavenly Parents, thank you for this new day to live.
Honestly, I wish I did not have more examples, but I have many, many more. I will just offer one more area that deeply confuses me. And it is why nothing happens to members of the church who publish books like Queer Mormon Theology, a book by Blair Ostler, which accuses the church of homophobia and actively advocates for activism against the church in order to get it to embrace queer polygamy in its temples.
Transgender men who desire fatherhood as gestational dads can even nurse their babies in a practice called chest feeding. Eventually, uterus transplants may allow transgender women to gestate children too. It seems fitting for individuals who were assigned male at birth to aspire to motherhood when Latter-day Apostles teach the highest and noblest work in this life is that of a mother.
Does the church no longer excommunicate people for open and flagrant apostasy like this? And before you think this is some fringe book, just know that noted LDS author and scholar Patrick Mason has done an entire podcast praising the book.
On the foyer, Blair Ostler's book is called Queer Mormon Theology, an Introduction, and Taylor Petrie's is called Tabernacles of Clay, Sexuality and Gender in Modern Mormonism. They would make great Christmas gifts for all the people on your list, stocking stuffers. That's what all the kids want this year.
Additionally, Bishop Ostler, who is a popular fireside speaker and Deseret book author, had Blair on his very popular podcast 4 separate times, including one episode totally dedicated to promoting her book and looking for ways to get her ideas into the hands of church educators.
And every time Blair comes on, I learn something, and she has great insights. And so she has written a book, and we both felt it makes sense for Blair to come back on the podcast and talk about her book.
Why would the church publish Bishop Ostler's books when they contain ideas like these?
While Nate is a transgender man, also known as female to male, or FTM, we can see him just as a man. Our son came out to us as transgender at age 3. I feel blessed that this was the case, as I have never thought that he was choosing this. Straight kids are never told that they should hold off on putting a label on themselves. This is part of how the shame, the awareness of being broken or wrong, begins. Yes, they know they are LGBTQ at a young age. These precious young children also carry, to varying degrees, the burden of hiding that identity. Heavenly Father told me that she, my underage daughter, was going to start hormones one way or another, and I needed to help her, so she got them from a legitimate doctor.
Keep in mind, this content is on the shelf at your local Deseret book. I actually went to a Deseret bookstore to see if the book was there and to ask if they were aware about the content of the book. And when the manager came out to talk to me, she was wearing a rainbow pin under her Deseret book name tag. Seriously. Like, I was just thinking, what is going on?
It should be clear to you by now that there is, in fact, an internal, coordinated effort to make the church woke. Jacob Hansen discussed activities involving the Relief Society General Presidency, the Young Woman's President, the First Presidency itself, Deseret Book, BYU, the various popular Mormon podcasters, fireside speakers, and influencers, and so on. And when you look at all these things together, you can see that wokeness is being normalized in the church from every direction except heaven itself. So clearly, there is a corrupt, concerted effort to make the church woke. But unfortunately, people like Jacob Hansen will refuse to admit this.
Now, there may be bad face actors in there, but I don't think it's some coordinated effort. I don't.
You sure about that?
In fact, they're not only refusing to admit the obvious, they're starting to change their tune by defending those like Aaron Sherinian instead of attacking him like they did before. Why are they doing this? Because they want to avoid the uncomfortable position of opposing the brethren. And at this point, the only way attentive people can avoid that uncomfortable position is to throw their common sense out the window. And that's exactly what Jacob's doing, which is why he insists that there's no cabal trying to ruin the church from within, despite all the evidence to the contrary. And I suspect that Jacob will continue to cope no matter how bad it gets, just as long as the leaders don't come out and openly declare their intentions as a foolish cartoon villain would.
I hereby declare war on peace and happiness. Soon all will tremble before me.
But then again, it could be argued that the brethren have already done this.
Some in the media have suggested that the church presents impossibly high standards for women, and that the church does not give space for women to lead. What do you want people to understand about the role of women in the church today?
I think we should also say that we have not always been wise in using the great qualifications and powers of the daughters of God. We have work left to do, but we are a lot better off than we were even a decade ago.
In any case, Jacob has willfully chosen delusion over reality. He has chosen to live his life in denial instead of facing the truth. And he insists that the rest of us do the same, otherwise we're no different than those who abandoned Joseph Smith when the church's anti-banking society failed.
I want to do something real quick. First of all, some people might think like they're just like, the church is on, oh my gosh, like I gotta leave, the brethren are endorsing this, and you shut up, okay? First of all of you guys that are like freaking out as though the church is in some dire straits because some PR person, or not even a PR person, probably some intern who does social media posts, ran it by their managers like, oh yeah, this guy was on a thing a few years ago, and this is probably all new stuff. They probably had no idea about any of this, and they posted it, and now someone is getting yelled at and feeling really stupid about it. Guess what? Congratulations. You know what else? The Kirtland Safety Society totally fell apart and everybody lost their shirt. Okay? So if you want to be one of those people that abandoned Joseph when the Kirtland Safety Society had its failure, go and be that guy.
Jacob, this situation is nothing at all like what happened with the Safety Society. And you even attempting to make that comparison just shows how desperate you are. The Safety Society was a noble endeavor that failed because of outside intervention. What's happening in the church today is not a noble endeavor, nor is it the result of outside intervention. And the evidence is beyond overwhelming. Aside from the LGBTQ propaganda that's being produced by our own church institutions, and the fact that famous people like Charlie Bird aren't being excommunicated for their flagrant apostasy, we can point to the specific actions of the brethren themselves. For example, despite going around proudly proclaiming themselves to be defenders of religious liberty, they went out of their way to support LGBTQ laws that robbed us individual citizens of our religious protections. I refer to the Respect for Marriage Act and the Utah Compromise, the latter of which could have easily been defeated if the church had just lobbied against it. But the brethren didn't want to stop it. They wanted the Utah Compromise to succeed because it would help spread wokeness among our people. And remember, they're globalists. Their goal is to spread wokeness among us. That's been their goal for a long time. But they couldn't say it outright. So they feigned a compromise when no compromise was even necessary. In truth, the Utah Compromise was one of the biggest betrayals ever committed by our own church leaders, and it doesn't end there. As pointed out earlier in this video, they authorized the baptism of a proud, unrepentant transgender and placed him on the membership record of the church as a female, even though he was born male. And they did this despite the fact that gender is an eternal part of one's identity. It cannot be changed. And in addition to all this, the brethren select gay activists like Aaron Sherinian to fill very important positions in the church. They're selecting people who should be excommunicated, not elevated. And they're doing it because they know it will change the church. Now look at the text wall. If you're looking at just one of the things listed here, you might be able to excuse it as a mistake or blame it on insubordination from random employees. But when you look at all these issues together, it becomes painfully clear that they're all part of a concerted effort to change the church, starting with the mindset of our people and ending with an eventual change in our doctrine. And keep in mind, the rainbow issues are just one branch of the poisonous tree that the brethren have been raising up among us. Their treachery goes far beyond LGBTQism. It also involves feminism. In fact, their Sunday school policy alone proves them of being fallen prophets. And then there are the other issues like the church's anti-gun policy, the legitimizing of the UN, the promotion of immigration, open borders, an overall anti-white agenda, and so on. When you look at all these things together, there should be no question that the brethren have not only betrayed the church, but that they're actively working to physically destroy us as well. And let me stress this point. Everything you heard me list off just now, and everything you're seeing on the text wall, is only a summary of what's been going on. I could go much further into detail on how they're purposely undermining the gospel and setting us up to be enslaved and eventually destroyed. So no, Jacob, this situation we're in now is nothing like what happened with our anti-banking society. It is time to stop running and hiding from the truth and start doing what has to be done. And what has to be done? We have to start putting pressure on our leaders. All of them, from the bishops all the way up to the first presidency. We have to start complaining to them about the woke activities of the church and start exposing and opposing the ones who defend or celebrate it. We have to break the unconditional, cult-like trust that our people have in the leadership. We have to encourage more like-minded people to start speaking out. We have to generate the resistance needed to force our fallen leaders to either repent or resign from office. This is the only way to stop the church from being woke and to save our descendants from being raised in a wicked church. And yes, make no mistake about it, the church today is under condemnation. It is a woke, globalist, feminist, apostate, wicked organization that is imploding on itself. It must be stirred up to repentance. So all of you, go schedule appointments with your bishops and stake presidents. Tell them about the Feminist Temple Endowment. Tell them about Charlie Bird and demand to know why he hasn't been excommunicated and demand that he be excommunicated. Tell them you're starting to distrust the brethren. Tell them about the standard works doctrine. Tell them about Section 20 of the Doctrine and Covenants and how it's the duty of all priesthood holders from teachers up to watch over the church so that iniquity doesn't prevail in it. And then go look for the higher ranking leaders. Go attend special church events where you can meet Area 70s, General 70s, apostles, and perhaps the president himself. Walk right up to them and bring up the issues I've discussed in this video. Ask them about Charlie Bird. Ask them about the Feminist Temple Endowment. Ask them about the woke social media posts and the DEI programs at BYU. Ask them about all these things. And if you're in a one-party consent state, like Utah, record the entire conversation so you can post their excuses, denials, and threats to the internet and expose how fraudulent our brave and glorious leaders actually are. Because when you talk to these people, they'll either defend what is happening or they'll pretend not to know what you're talking about. In which case, you can pull out your phone and show them the pictures proving that what you're complaining about is real. At which point, they'll usually get annoyed and either try to run away or they'll start defending the woke activities they pretended didn't exist. And when you disprove their excuses and justifications for what's happening, then they'll get really annoyed and end the conversation. And sometimes before running away, they'll say something like, If you don't like the direction the church is going, you're free to remove your name from the membership record. Or sometimes they'll threaten you with excommunication by saying something like, "You have to trust in the brethren and let these things go, or else one day you'll find yourself out of the church." So basically, no matter what you say to them, no matter what scriptures you point out to them, their ultimate response will be that the church will go the way it goes and the brethren will do what they do, and if you don't like it, shut up or get out. That's usually how these conversations go. So make sure you're recording things when you talk to these people, and not just the 70s and the apostles, but your bishops and stake presidents too. Put the fear of God back into our leadership by exposing the woke corruption wherever it can be found. Expose everyone who is defending, excusing, or enabling wokeness to spread in the church. And when talking to these people, don't be afraid to remind them that the standard works doctrine exists, that the saints not only have a right, but a divine obligation to withdraw their common consent and stir up righteous opposition against corrupt leaders who refuse to keep the church in harmony with the scriptures. We have a duty to do this. The Lord expects us to do this. And if you're with me, then start planning and preparing for these interactions. And take the time to like and share this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my social media. I need your support.